At that point, I was really just following what was going on in Hungary. There was much more consciousness all over Europe about how dangerous this was. It was clear that was also on, the horizon in the States. What we saw and what we knew was very dangerous. The threat to democracy all over the world is one of the biggest threats we face. That's why we wanted to do the film.
Writer and philosopher George Santayana wrote in 1905, "Those who cannot remember the past are condemned to repeat it." That idea has clearly inspired filmmaker Connie Field. Her award-winning documentaries on politics, history, and social change help us understand today's world by drawing vital lessons from the past. When women of the baby boom generation were flooding the workforce, her groundbreaking film, The Life and Times of Rosie the Riveter, revealed the powerful stories of women who worked in World War II factories. As voter suppression became a growing issue in parts of the U.S., her Oscar-nominated Freedom on My Mind reminded us of the importance of voting rights by documenting voter registration efforts in Mississippi during the early 60s. So, what are we to think now that Field has turned her lens on Hungary, examining the election, defeat, and return to power of Viktor Orbán? The result is Democracy Noir, a timely and chilling look at how democratic institutions can be weakened and bent to become tools of authoritarian rule. Democracy Noir is an urgent, important film, and we're honored to share our conversation with Connie Field about the film and about the state of democracy on Inside the Arthouse, starting now.
Hi, my name's Greg Lemley.
And I'm Raphael Sparge.
And welcome to today's episode of Inside the Arthouse. Today we are joined by documentary filmmaker Connie Field. Connie, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
So you were twice Oscar nominated, but Oscar nominated for the film Forever on My Mind, which was a look at, people fighting for their, to exercise their right to vote and participate in democracy. With your new film, Democracy Noir, there's maybe a level where we're looking at that process in reverse. Care to discuss?
Not exactly, because a good portion of the film is about people resisting authoritarianism and fighting against it, which in this story, I think is a vital, important part of this story. The fact that through all the years of Viktor Orbán's presidency of Hungary, which he turned it into an authoritarian state, people have remained vigilant and have been out in the streets, and they never stopped. And the significance of that is what's happening today. What's happening today in Hungary is there's a party that can really challenge Orbán. They banned Pride. Yeah. Orbán banned it. It was against the law, and over 200,000 people were marching in the streets of Budapest, led by the Budapest mayor. All right. And these things can happen because people never gave up.
Right.
So in that sense, there's some commonality with Freedom on My Mind. Also I wanted to tell people Freedom on My Mind is on HBO Max on the Turner Classic Movie channel. So you can still see it if you're interested.
Terrific.
Yeah.
Connie, I'm aware of the fact is that documentaries take an inordinate amount of time and also planning and sometimes, finding your way in to tell a story, particularly one with so much scope, can sort of happen in all sorts of unusual ways. I guess I wonder, because so much of this is happening in real time, what was your foothold in to sort of start the conversation, as it were, and watch it as it unfolded?
Okay, well, the first thing and most important part is my husband is Hungarian. Okay, so I've been going to Hungary almost every year since 1990, and we've been watching things unfold, throughout basically the decades. Because of that, I feel close to Hungary. I have a lot of Hungarian friends, so I love a lot. But what started this particular project, it was actually in 2014. We walked into the middle of Budapest in this square called Liberty Square, and there I found empty pillars, 4 empty pillars surrounded by police and everybody protesting. And what was going on there is Viktor Orbán was trying to rewrite history. He very much took over the educational system, much like Trump is trying to do in our country. He was trying to build a monument that showed how much Hungary suffered under Germany during World War II, as opposed to being Germany's ally, which
Right.
is the truth, as opposed to being the ones that the Hungarians rounded up their own Jews and sent them to Auschwitz. Numerically, of all the European countries, more Hungarians died in Auschwitz than any other country.
That was the wait. There's a story to be told here. That moment.
And I just started filming.
Right.
I had my little still camera that also shot film, and I just started filming. And that's also where I met Nico, the nurse who's in the film. I met her then. She was very young. She must have been just 20 or something. She was there with her uncle.
And Nico is one of the several people who you follow in the film throughout this trajectory.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. And Nico and I became Facebook friends. And so I spent years following everything that she was doing there. But it wasn't really until around 2020, around there, where I started really trying to turn what I'd captured and develop a film. And that's largely because of the pandemic. My husband had time to translate everything for me.
I wondered, I was going to ask you, how's your Hungarian? I mean, clearly, many of your interviews are in Hungarian, so
Yes.
it's remarkable.
Yes, well, he provided, all the first translations and entrance into everything, but hadn't had time to do all my transcripts for me, but we did. And so then I started trying to work on the film and started trying to raise money for the film. It really wasn't until I began a partnership with Sigrid Dijker from Denmark. The possibility of the film could really happen. I mean, she really made it happen.
How so?
Well, because she came on board. She came on board, well, not officially in January of 2022, but we'd been working together the summer before. We were talking about the film. We were deciding we needed more characters than Nico. I then discovered Timia, and I discovered Timia on the internet, basically.
And she's fantastic.
And she's
so appealing. So appealing.
She's so feisty.
Yeah,
she's just feisty.
And so genuine, and she's just so likable, winning. Yeah.
Yeah, and she speaks English.
Yes, she does quite well. Yes, that's also a great point. Right.
Yeah, and then also right before I was going to film, I realized I must have a journalist really to tell the story.
Yes.
And that's when I began seeking out journalists, on Zoom, and landed with Babette, who was really, in many ways, like a partner for me in this film. She was phenomenal. I mean, we would go out, we went out to the countryside.
Yes,
of
those
Hungary.
scenes with it, right?
Yeah,
yes.
to see what
Just
those
beautiful.
people really thought, because that's a huge base of Orbán's support, not
Right.
Budapest. And in talking to people, and I filmed it, well, she used my footage as a story that she put on her network, Partisan, which at that point was on the internet.
Right.
Okay?
That
We
was the
really-
reaction that she did. She sort of went online to because it started getting shut down. Right. That was that. interesting thing.
They went online, and she joined that organization, and it's a great news organization. It's won lots of prizes. So we worked like that. I would say, oh my goodness, I must understand how the propaganda works here in Hungary. So what does she do? She decides she'll do a program on it. And lets me film her doing a program on it. So we basically really collaborated a lot, which was really marvelous. And so Sigrid came on, so I had the backing of her company. And it was really her company and my company that made this film happen. And other people came on later. Much later.
Well, you mentioned Timia, so we now understand the three characters. Let's meet one of them. Here's a clip where we sort of are introduced to Timia, who is an opposition politician in Hungary.
Sokszor szerintem minden politikus már fogalmazódik, hogy én már nekem ebből elegem van, én a családommal akarok lenni, nyugodt életet akarok. Aztán az ember kimegy az utcára, körbenéz, és azt mondja, nem lehet. In 2009, I was approached by the leader of LMP. Politics can be different. One of the parties, we needed to encourage people to participate more actively in the decisions that directly affect their lives and not let politicians alone decide about the future of the country. So that's how I got involved. And in 2010, we had the national elections here. And that's how I became an MP. Social justice and environmental sustainability, that's what I was hoping to achieve over a decade ago when I was young and enthusiastic. Now I'm old and enthusiastic, but I'm still here.
Well, documentaries succeed. I mean, you think about Spellbound, you think about some of these other films, and it's like you look at it after it's all put together, and they picked all the right people to follow.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's just the luck of the draw, but you really did luck into three amazing characters.
Well, even beyond that, I mean, here's the thing that actually kind of I think about. I mean, look, clearly you've been nominated twice before. You clearly and docs are long and hard and require enormous kind of sensitivity and instinct. But this film knocked me out. It sort of really stuck with me, and I've thought about it, and I've talked about it to people because when you started it anyway, so prescient as to relates to what's going on now. I mean, you were pre the current administration when you were starting this, and all of the sort of the bubble ideas of it were happening. What's incredible, of course, is it landing at the moment with this sort of as we're watching in the U.S., sort of a hollowing out of democracy, and as you really show this man and his playbook for how it's done, and I guess before we get into the politics, because there's something to be said there, but what I find as a filmmaker anyway, which is so interesting, is how you sort of again you walked out, you saw this sort of a bunch of people around on the statue, and you were like, there's a film here, and that you built this and you stayed with it as long as you did. And now it lands at such a sort of a profound moment. I guess I don't know what the question I'm asking is what do you even make of yourself having sort of seen this now, because it's so relevant, because you did this so ahead of the fact? Well,
I mean, obviously that trajectory wasn't exactly what I was thinking about in 2014.
Right.
That was even before, Trump's first term.
Right.
But it was what we saw and what we knew was very dangerous. That's why we wanted to do the film. And and that it was a growing danger, okay? And we did a lot of filming that year, but it was really literally impossible for me to get it funded. I mean, it was not on anybody's radar and whatever, so it wasn't. That's why I took it up later. But I think it's because there was a dangerous trajectory Orbán represented.
Right.
I didn't know it was going to, and obviously, after Trump's first forage into trying to destroy our country, it was clear that was also on, the horizon in the States. But it wasn't, at that point, I was really just following what was going on in Hungary. And also at that point, it was, there was much more consciousness all over Europe about how dangerous this was.
Right, because of obviously having gone through World War II and everything else, and
more things happening in countries all over Europe in terms of the rise of the right, largely because of immigration issues. That's a huge issue in Europe, and in Europe, it's actually what I call a real issue. I call what Trump is doing a manufactured issue.
Yes.
Actually,
right,
okay,
right,
it's
right.
not a huge danger for the United States, and so it just. I was making the film, and this is what it landed in.
Yeah, it's like essentially like you just caught the right, like you waited and then jumped on the right wave. I mean, it lands at such an auspicious moment in terms of what he lays out as relates to kind of a handbook for authoritarian rule that then is really intent on controlling all aspects of the government and really shutting down any other voices other than their own. And it's a You also told it, which I find interesting too, sort of without a kind of a cynical agenda. You literally just sort of stayed with the people and you sort of let them kind of tell it for us. And it just sort of happens kind of the way these things can, sort of simply and all at once, you know? Over the past 6 months or so, as we've sort of been in this new trajectory with a new administration in the U.S., has it given you renewed kind of sort of fire to kind of get this out and launched?
Oh, absolutely. You know, people's ability to relate to this film after Trump actually arrived, because I tried to get it out before he arrived, because I wanted it to help not have him arrive.
Yes.
But the reality was that, it didn't catch people's heads. Look, the Democrats went around the country talking about Project 2025, which I think flew over most everybody's
It's like talking about a term paper or something.
It just didn't. Then all of a sudden, when I showed this on January 20th,
after the election,
the inauguration, the night of the inauguration, everybody went click, 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 click. It all of a sudden, people could recognize it. And what people told me, which I was very pleased about, is that the film gave them a clarity of what they were in. Because it's very hard when you're on the ground.
Right.
Someone is throwing things at you, which is Trump's method. It's hard to see it and hard to understand it.
That's that Steve Bannon method of kind of hitting on all zones at the same time. Right.
Absolutely. But by seeing this, they understood what they were in.
Yes. It had that effect for me as well. I found it sort of profound and helpful, because I walk around kind of in a turmoil most days, and have to regulate my news input because of that. But I am there was something about this that was sort of both sort of terrible and comforting at the same time. I hope that's okay to say that. But I'm not the film itself, but what we're watching. Do you? How have the audiences now been responding to the film? I mean, have you had opportunity? Did you go to festivals, or have you had public screenings? What's the
both
rollout?
Festivals and public screenings. And it's basically, the film's been all over Europe and many countries.
Yes.
And I'm just basically really getting it out now. Okay, it's going to open in New York on September 5th. It's going to be, with you guys in LA, and it's going to a lot of different theaters. Groups are starting to use it all over. I really, really want to spend, the whole next year getting this film out. Okay, and people, people have related very, very strongly to it. And as you said, it puts a context of what we're living through. And the other thing that it does is it gives them hope, because these people in the film don't give up.
Yeah, no, that's 100% right.
So
I guess I'm going to ask you a very big question. What does democracy mean to you now? Now that you've been through this, now that you've seen this, and now that we're all watching this in slow motion. But you spent a lot of time making this movie, editing it and putting it together and telling the story. But what has it evolved to mean for you at this point?
Well, I honestly think the threat to democracy all over the world is one of the biggest threats we face. I think that and climate change are the big global issues.
But what is democracy? Because clearly, it's not. Is it a partisan issue? Is it or is it what? I guess I'm curious. What is it now? Now that you've made this?
Okay, democracy is a system that was devised to give voice and control to the people. That's its ideals. Okay, and it's set up a system, where we can participate in the things that are happening in our lives, as opposed to being under a dictator who controls everything in our lives, or a king who controlled everything in our lives. The whole founding
or the tyranny of the majority, if you want to go with the talk.
Well, or the tyranny of the minority, which is what we're in right now.
Right.
It's certainly, that's how I look upon it. I know that it's an abstract term, but to me, it's very concrete in allowing us to create a world that I think is better for humanity. Because I've made films about a lot of issues that are social, whether it's women or whether it's civil rights issues or whether it's Palestine or whether it's, all kinds of different issues. This is something that shapes all of those other stories. It's like those stories sit on the fact in a democracy those things were possible. it was possible for us to fight for civil rights in this country and achieve many things, which we did.
Yes.
You do that through a democracy.
Yes.
So and in the first Trump administration, I guess it helped me understand how many holes are in our democracy that make it not a democracy. Certainly the Senate doesn't. That's not democratic. Certainly, lifelong Supreme Court, that's not, all kinds of things we're sort of able to see. Wait a minute, these are things in our Constitution that are a danger to our democracy. The Hungarians had the same thing. In their new Constitution of 1990, it has in the Constitution, if a political party gets 2/3 majority in Parliament, it can rewrite the Constitution.
Ay, ay, ay.
Why would they ever put that in? It's crazy, but they did, and that's what got them in their situation.
Got it. Okay, that was
Orbán,
I thought maybe I was. I needed
process to amend these documents over time, but and that's it's a huge majority.
And with polarization, it's impossible to make.
It's impossible to achieve here.
That's what I mean. Yeah.
Well, there it was legal for him to change the Constitution, and that's what he did in 2011. And what's amazing about what he did is that he put in everything he might want to do. Okay, he didn't necessarily do it. In the Hungarian Constitution is the rights of the fetus, but he has never moved on that in Hungary. Women can still have control over their own bodies there, but he does have it in his Constitution in case he wants to use it.
What's so interesting about the man, of course, which is so similar, is to our situation, is that he has this astounding ability to hypnotize sort of a core group of, in this case, more I want to say agrarian or more peasant-based kind of part of the population, maybe sort of less educated kind of part of the population in Hungary, and they are they're with him. That he speaks to their heart and to their core ideals and to their patriotism and to their ideas of what matters, and they're with him, And again,
and he uses an issue that presented itself, which was immigration, massive immigration of
and Hungary first,
Syrian
right?
Refugees,
And I'm fighting for you, and all of that, and obviously also the EU money was very helpful. That enormous kind of parade of whatever it is dollars that came through, but that's such an interesting thing, isn't it? I mean, to be able to sort of hypnotize sort of a part of the population, to be able to kind of get them with you, even when you're actually sort of undermining it at the same time.
Okay. There's a lot of similarities between Orbán and Trump, okay, though I think Trump is much more dangerous. Let me say that. He's much more dangerous than Orbán is. But what Orbán did, Orbán was elected in 1998. He got thrown over in 2002. Orbán started his life as a liberal. Orbán went to Oxford on a scholarship from George Soros, who he's now made into the international boogeyman.
Right, okay. The liberal boogeyman, right, yeah.
Okay, then what Orbán did after the 2002 election, he was very depressed. He went about searching for a constituency and building his party all over the countryside and finding out what the core in those people, nationalism was very much one of the issues that he picked up on. So he kind of, he directs his politics towards that constituency, just like Trump directs his politics towards what became MAGA.
Right. Mm-hmm.
For his power.
No, 100%.
Okay, you know that it's not everything that Trump believes. He's pro-abortion. All of these things about Trump. Okay, but they did that very similar thing, and that's what Orbán did. And he crafts his politics to them. And also the issue of immigration in Hungary is very interesting to look at because it's really an example of creating an enemy, as Timea says.
Right.
And you're going to be the one who saves the country from that enemy.
It's the othering. Essentially.
Yes, and that's exactly what Trump is doing.
Yep.
That's exactly what Orbán did. And Hungary was in no danger whatsoever about immigration. Nobody wanted to stay there. It was a through route to get to Sweden or Germany. Timea says that in Parliament. That's not what people were wanted. Nobody was threatened, but he made them into a threat. And he made the EU into a threat. He made George Soros into a threat. He's got to have all these enemies that he's fighting and will save you.
No,
it's really
again,
part of the package.
It's such a handbook.
Well, it's yes. There's a lot to be. I guess there are always things to be nervous about, but there are things to be inspired by, and I think the film, plays to both those angles and does it very well.
Yeah, I guess I just wonder. People leaving the theater. Do you want them? What would you hope for them to feel? Sort of anger or frustration or clarity or discomfort or what? It lands in any number of those. But I wonder what you make of the reaction in terms of what you hope for it to happen.
Well, I hope for clarity, that they achieve some clarity about the situation that we're in through this reflection, like a mirror, and the importance of resistance, that they go out and resist by any means that they can do where they are. Because we have so many institutions under attack all over the country, whether you're working at a university, et cetera. All our institutions are getting attacked. And so we can work where we are to fight. And that's what we need to do. We absolutely need to do that. And even though it seems impossible, even though it's against, big odds, we are a bit luckier than the Hungarians in the fact that our two-party system, we have two parties, and they both have a lot of money. It's not like the Democrats are suffering from poverty, which they were.
Well, the poverty of one sort or another, but not a poverty of dollars.
No dollars. They have another poverty, but hopefully they'll get out from under this, and we need to push them in that direction to do it. A new kind of party. But it's what we need to do.
So resistance. Because that is where I find myself so again also in the current situation here, and I'm you have made a film about Hungary, and you have made a film about Orbán, and you have made a film that's I think that can be watched.
Well, it's a film about Hungary, but it's a film about a universal idea as well.
Years and years, yeah. But right. It's a universal. It's
using Hungary as a way of looking at
autocratic.
What
control.
happens? Well, what happens when people willingly or unwillingly in many cases back this person who.
Right, but the thing is that one of the things that is so frustrating, of course, at the moment is that there is so little resistance from our other party, that is the Democrats are sort of largely silent, and there's also, I keep looking for more opportunities for people to speak up. So I love that what you're saying, which is that at the end of the day, it really is about just continuing.
Well, just showing up in the streets. Obviously, you can outlaw the Pride March, but if we're going to show up in the streets, what are you going to do?
What's important about that? And this is what happened in Hungary that was very important. The importance of those demonstrations when you have a regime that certainly isn't going to listen to you
right.
is to build solidarity amongst each other. It's very important because you're out there, you're with hundreds, thousands of people. You understand you're not alone in what you're facing. All of us are here together, and we're gonna let our voice be heard in the streets.
Yes.
That solidarity amongst ourselves is extremely, extremely important. Yeah, okay. And because Hungary did that, and because of that history of resistance, when an opportunity comes, everybody's there, which is what's going on in Hungary right now. So
right. The secret is out, and people are savvy and are ready to resist.
Yeah, they're already there. And
so
ready
you
to
will become
join
you will, with this film, as you travel around the country, become, I believe, I want to say, sort of an oracle, as it were, for reminding people about how important it is to be able to continue to fight for their democracy. Because if they don't, it will surely slip away. And I know we hear that, and I know there's all the fear mongering, et cetera. But really, again, what you provide in this film is so practically just a checklist of how it's hollowed out and what can happen, and that's why I just think this film is so important, and I'm just thrilled to talk to you, and very excited about today to talk to you and about other audiences seeing it.
The film is Democracy Noir. It's going to be opening in New York City on September 5th. Where are we opening in New York?
At the Village East.
Angelica's
Village East.
And it'll be here in Los Angeles at the Monica Film Center on December 19th, and then rolling out around the rest of the country. Where can people go to get more information about when the film is coming to their community?
They can go to our website, which is clarityfilms.org. O-R-G.
That's
then we've got
CLARITY, films.org.
We'll put it up on the
yes,
screen.
and then we've got some things there, and we're doing more than just showing in the theaters. We have an entire impact campaign where we're reaching out into communities. We have the film available for groups to use and screen and do Zooms and everything all at once.
And you've got a fantastic distributor named Jeff Lipsky who's gonna make sure everyone knows about it.
Connie, you talked about showing up in the streets and being there and finding, common cause and solidarity. You can find that in the movie theater as well. So if there's a screening, get thee to the movie theater, see the film, and join in the discussion afterwards about what you've seen and how it applies to your life and your community. And that's another great way to find common cause.
Particularly if you're feeling isolated, as I often do, I'm the only one feeling this, and how come it's not louder out there? I think watching this in the theater would be really exciting just to be in the community.
And we have a community here as well at Inside the Arthouse. So if you've enjoyed this episode, please make sure to like and subscribe and follow us and share this episode, especially, if you know people who are interested in this subject matter. I know
people.
Yeah. Let them know about the film, and hopefully this discussion is a good way to get them excited to see it. Connie Field, wonderful having you here joining us on Inside the Arthouse. Thank you.
Thank you, Connie. Great to meet you.
Thank you guys so much.
Our show was produced by Raphael Sparge with on-site producer Norrin Dickerson. Supervising producers are Thomas Cassetta and Miles McCreary. Our show was edited by Gabriel Emley and sound mixed by Thomas Cassetta. Our musical theme was composed by Isabel Engman and Gerardo Garcia Jr. Marketing by Gabriel Emley. Show graphics by Jenna DeAngelis. Additional marketing and web design by Stephanie Peters. Filmed at the historic Lumley Royal Theater in Los Angeles, California. See you next time on Inside the Arthouse. If you liked today's show, please consider subscribing to our channel to learn more on Inside the Arthouse.